All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for showing up and taking your time to listen to the two-step listing approach. And I'm sure you'll be happy that you did. Hope you like that intro music there a little bit because toward the end of this, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. Yeah, well, anyway. So here, why should you listen to me? Well, I've been in the real estate business full time since 1978-ish. And was 19 when I got my license, finished up college, and began selling full time right upon completion of my college education, which was mostly about meeting people and having fun than it was about learning any specific skill. I will tell you that. So I jumped into the real estate business for 6 months. I was struggling. I was averaging $645 a month, which even back in 1978 was not enough. I don't care how you budget, you're not going to make it on that kind of money. So I had to figure out quickly how to do this business and how to do it in a way that I could actually make the kind of money that I felt I needed to make. So I spent the next 6 months, uh, you know, um, implementing what I had learned from my mentor. And I just studied really hard and I practiced and I in the mirror and I drilled and I rehearsed and I just be, before I knew it, these dialogues and strategies I was learning became part of me and part of my presentation and part of what I said when I talked to people, when I was out knocking on doors and so forth and so on. And so my next 6 months, I averaged $8,477 a month, which back in 1979 was a lot of do re mi. I will tell you that. And so you can see, or at least you can hear from me, that how these learning these strategies and tactics and dialogues made a huge, huge difference in my real estate career. And I think they will you too if you commit to doing the work. And like my mentor said, the only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary. So get ready to roll up your sleeves. All right. Hey, back in the day, this is what I looked like. I actually had some hair and apparently a suntan there wherever I was. I think it was Denver, Colorado. I was receiving another award from Remax for being one of the top brokers within the region back in whenever that was. I think it was roughly 1990-ish. I don't know, 92 maybe, right in there. So here's another little example. I was for the month of August 1992. I was number 7 in the region out of there was 500 or 600 people, and that month the average commission for the top 10 was $32,292 for the month. Back in '92, a lot of do re mi. Today it's a lot of money, but back in '92 it was a lot of money. All right, so Remax names Michael Fuller top Oregon sales associate for April. Again, this was in '92, and of course in '92 I did average 15 listings a month, 7 sales a month, and $32,000 a month in commissions. And back again in '92, that's a lot. That's a ton of fun goals, eh? I'll tell you that right about now, says the Godfather. Okay, so anyway, I've been involved in more than 3,000 successful real estate transactions during my career, and I've hired, coached, mentored, and trained thousands of real estate agents and brokers all across North America since 1981. And I'm known as the guy that builds confidence in my clients and gets results fast, often 3xing to 10xing their business in the first year. In other words, the clients that work with me in helping them to build their real estate business, which is what I focus on a lot. I still sell real estate, but I am most of my time today is spent training, teaching, giving back to the industry that's been so good to me. Okay, so that's enough about me. This is really all about you, and I know you don't want to hear any more of this diatribe about yours truly, so let's get started. Let's rock and roll. All right, so listen up. I'd like you to do it. Go ahead and close. This is for your benefit, by the way. Just close your distractions right now. Social media, other windows, your phone, put it on silent. Don't check your email. Grab a pen and paper, roll up your sleeves, get ready to go to work. Hey, and grab your favorite beverage, whatever it might be, because we're going to be here for, 45 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer. And I want you to be focused, comfortable, and prepared and ready to go. Okay, so this is it, listing in 2 steps. And this is the key to doubling your conversion rate on your listing appointments. And to not only doubling your conversion rate, but to getting it at the right price as well. I personally always use the 2-step approach, and I'll tell you why. Even though I've done so many transactions and so many listings, when I learned this the hard way, I tried listing in the 1-step. I had about a 35% success rate of getting the listing even. And then, probably 80% of those were overpriced. I didn't prepare the seller properly. I didn't build rapport, and it was a disaster, frankly. Once I learned the approach, now I get the listing whenever I want, basically, 90% of the time, 85+%, and the ones that I don't want, I don't take. And that's basically how it goes now because of the way that I go about the process. And you can do the same. Okay, so here's step 1. And this is a 2-step approach. So step 1 is actually going to the property. So you've got the listing lead. I don't care how you got it, but you've got the lead. And now it's time for you to go see the property. How can you possibly do a listing presentation in a thorough, professional way if you haven't even seen the property yet? So you got to go see it. Okay. So here's what you do. You call the seller and you say, Mrs. Cooper, I'd like to stop by for a few minutes this afternoon, if that's at all possible. You see, it'll help me do a more professional job this evening if I can see your home first. I have a considerable amount of research to do before our meeting this evening, and the more I know about your home, the more accurate and valuable my research will be to you and your husband. Would 1 o'clock this afternoon be convenient, or shall I make it around 2? Listen to the words. Practice those words. Those are amazing. Okay, so she'll say 1 or 2 because she can't say yes or no. You didn't ask her a yes or no question. So let's say she says 2 o'clock. Okay, great. You thank her and you say you'll see her right at 2 o'clock. All right, so you show up on time, a couple minutes early, in fact. Park across the street. Always park across the street, never in their driveway. What if your car leaks oil? Okay, bad first impression. Okay, and plus I want you to get out of your car, pull your phone out or your camera, take some photos. They'll be watching, likely out their window, anticipating your arrival. So if you're out there taking some pictures already, that's not only assumptive in a positive way, but it's showing that you're thorough and you're a professional. Okay, so now you come up to the door and you knock enthusiastically. It's better than ringing the doorbell. What does a doorbell sound like every time you do it? Ding dong. But knock on the door enthusiastically. Act excited to be there. Okay, now they'll answer the door, or she'll answer the door, and you say, "Good afternoon, Mrs. Cooper. My name is Michael Fuller with ABC Realty. We had an appointment at 2 o'clock. Look at your watch or your phone and say, hey, it's right at 2 o'clock. May I come in? She'll say, sure. Immediately upon now entering, I automatically remove my shoes. Now, obviously, if it's a trash pit or something, you don't have to worry about that. But 99% of the time, I remove my shoes. It just shows that it's another little sign of respect. It's a way of helping you to build trust and rapport with them. Little stuff, right? It makes all the difference in the world. So ask the owner to show you through their home and look for common denominators. Take copious notes as you go through. Now, what you're looking for are things that you might have in common with this seller. And look at their photos maybe, look at maybe there's some trophies. It could be that they have children or grandchildren, or they work in a particular profession that you know something about. Who knows? But just look for those common denominators and build little conversations around them. Ask them a few questions about them. This is building rapport and creating this relationship. Okay, now here's some things you can really, solidify and dive a little deeper, with them. Once you've, gotten through the sort of the chit chat part of it, you might say, or I would say, how long have you lived here? And they will tell you. And then I would say, well, what most attracted you to this home when you first saw it? They will tell you. And you say, the reason I ask you that is because obviously, or most likely, I would say, what attracted you to this home are the same things that are going to attract the next buyer. And then, if it's appropriate, I would say, Mrs. Cooper, you've done such a wonderful job with your home. It feels so homey and it's decorated beautifully. So I'm wondering, why would you ever consider moving? Why do you ask it that way? Because you get the real answer, and they'll tell you, and you'll find out a little bit more about their motivation. Could be they have to move. Could be, who knows? There could be all kinds of answers that come from that question, and it will definitely help you hone your presentation for later. And then you can certainly say, where do you plan on moving to? How soon do you need to be there? And so on. And just, continue to build that rapport. Now it's time to get the seller involved. And this is really, I love this part. This is a fun part. Okay, you want to get them involved. This is a little NLP action for you, okay? So what you do is while you're going through the home, I want you to pause in one of the rooms, usually one of the biggest rooms where they spend a lot of time. And most of the time, that would be the room that's right off the kitchen, the great room, the family room, the gathering room, whatever you want to call it. And it seems that in most homes, people tend to gather around the kitchen somewhere. That's where the food is, right? So, I mean, that's where we want to be. The food and the beer, of course. Now, when you get to this room, what you do is you pause and you look around and you say, "This is a nice sized room, Mrs. Cooper. I'll bet you and your family spend a lot of time here. Do you happen to know the exact dimensions?" Usually she'll say no. Now you whip out your trusty cloth tape measure. Again, I emphasize cloth because it's another little thing. Cloth will not scratch. You know how those metal tapes can if they release too quickly and they're going along the hardwood floor and creating a scratch. Don't want that. And you can certainly use a fancy schmancy like electronic zapper type measuring device if you want to. I wouldn't recommend it on this first approach because how do you get the seller involved with that unless you let them do it? I suppose you can do it like that. And she can use the machine and zap it and tell you what the measurements are. I guess that would be one way to do it. But I tend to find that people tend to doubt these machines a little bit more than they do the actual cloth tape. Old-fashioned, I know, but it's important to do. So you whip out the tape, and I used to hand her the smart end, and I'd take the dumb end to the other end of the room, and I'd say, as I'm walking across the room, Mrs. Cooper, the longer I'm in real estate, the more I realize that the clients I work with demand accuracy in the professionals that they hire. That's why I measure every room to the exact inch. I'm sure you'll agree that accuracy is important, isn't it? She'll agree. Of course it is. And so then you continue and you measure every single room throughout the home. You're gathering ammo for your presentation. So once you've measured the rooms, yes, all of them, then it's time to ask, "Mrs. Cooper, do you own your home free and clear, or is there a mortgage on the property?" If there's a mortgage, which most of the time there will be, you follow up with, "About how much do you owe, including all the loans on your home?" Just approximately. Write down her answer. Again, you're going to need this information later, so write that answer down. And then segue. Ask her to show you the water heater when you're looking for what you're looking for, or is the size gallons, and for any signs of galvanic corrosion. I know, big fancy word, right? But when you get to the water heater, say, "I'm looking for two things, Mrs. Cooper: the size in terms of gallons, and for any signs of galvanic corrosion." And after you look, and if this is true, say, "Looks like you have an adequate size water heater to supply all the hot water you need. And there doesn't appear to be any galvanic corrosion, which can happen at the connection of copper pipes to galvanized pipes." Again, fancy, schmancy, a little bit on the wording, but they don't know what that means. I didn't even know what it meant. I had to look it up, but before I first used it. But it creates the feeling that you're different. You're a professional. You are detail oriented. You want to know these things about the home. Okay. So here's some more ammo getting questions, and that's the goal of this first step, is to get as much ammunition as you can so you can tailor a bulletproof killer listing presentation. Okay, so now I'm curious, Mrs. Cooper, do you have an idea of about how much you hope to realize from the sale after paying off the mortgage and all the costs of selling? Now, she's going to tell you, because she and Mr. Cooper have most likely already spoken about this, like we have to get X number of dollars in our pocket at closing, or we're not selling our house, or whatever it might be. Anyway, now she's already told you what they owe. Now she's going to tell you what they hope to net. So you, being the mathematician that you are, can pull out your trusty calculator, add up what they owe to what they want to net, and then what the costs of selling are. And then you'll have a perfectly good idea of what Mr. and Mrs. Cooper think they can sell their home for. Now, you could always just straight up ask them, "Hey, what do you think you want to sell your house for?" But I just don't think that's as professional. personally. So I like to do it the other way. So she'll give you the figure, and when you add this to the answer, yada, 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 you'll think of selling their home for them. It's magic, I know, but it works really, really well. Okay, so by the way, you segue into this. So by the way, do you plan on interviewing other brokers for the job of selling your home? If so, you want to set your listing presentation so you're the last one interviewed. Reason you want to do that is because then you're in a position to, close for the business without them having the excuse of, oh, we haven't talked to everybody yet. Although I've had a situation or two where I wasn't the last one in, and they said, well, we haven't talked to so-and-so yet. We really like you, Mike, and like to go with you. And I'd say, you know what? Here's what we can do. I'm happy with your approvals right here. We can get started getting you happily moved tonight. And I'm happy to go ahead and call this other agent or agents and let them know that you've decided to hire me, and that if they're welcome to show your home should they happen to have a buyer that it might be perfect for. Does that sound good to you? And you know what? They would say, you'll do that for us? I'd say, yeah, I'll do that for you. Anyway, most of the time you want to be last because it takes a little, it takes brass balls to say what I just said. Might need a little more time under your belt in presentations to be able to say stuff like that. So anyway, then now it's time to set the expectations and orient them to the process, which, by the way, you want to do all along the way. You always want to let them know what's coming next. Very important. So here's the setup. Ooh, there's the fire. Okay, snap several photos and say, hey, pictures are vital in the marketing of your home. And that's why I like to take several so any potential buyer can get a better feel for your home. And by the way, did you know that today's home buyer starts their research on the internet more than 89% of the time, according to the National Association of Realtors' latest study? And if there are no or not enough photos, the average buyer will just simply skip over your home to the next property that does have them. So it makes sense we have a lot of them, doesn't it? She'll say yes. Mrs. Cooper, I'd like to also ask you a favor. For our meeting, where we will go over all my research and so that we can best discuss the facts of record, would you please have the dining room table cleared so we can spread out the paperwork? She'll say sure, and you say thank you. Fantastic. Okay, so now leave your career book if you have one. I certainly leave one, and it has it's kind of like a scrapbook, really. It just has a bunch of information about me, not just professional information and accolades and things like that, but also some personal stuff and photos of family, and just to show I'm a real human being. And the success stories are in there as well, and some of the things that they need to think about in terms of selling their home. So it kind of presets and pre-frames them for the actual listing presentation, and it puts me in a good light. And it can you too, and I would suggest that you consider having one because, again, it is a nice book. It's leather bound, and it says career book right on it. And I simply left it with them, telling her I'd pick it up, when I come back. And that way, how people can get cold feet. Sometimes life comes up, or they just don't want to meet with you that day, or whatever. They want to blow you off even. Whatever the case might be, it's a lot harder for them to do so when you have to come back anyway to pick up your career book. Okay, so just a little tip. Again, it's kind of sneaky, really, but it's smart, so do it. Okay, now time to do your research. Okay, so gather all the facts of record, actives, pending, solds, and some expireds. And of course, note for sale by owners if there are any around the area, because again, if they know more about the market than you are not going to get hired. I can tell you that for sure. So personally preview as many of the comps as possible. You have to know more about the market than the seller, or you're toast, literally. Again, and this is a way to get some more leads and prospects too, if you know what to say when you're previewing occupied properties, and in a way that's totally professional, and you're not stepping out of bounds or anything like that. And we don't have time to go over that here. That's for another training and another day. So pre-build, if you'd like, an individual property website with pictures and verbiage and a QR code if you want that connects to the site, so that you can give them some sort of idea of some of the work that you'll be doing to expose their property online and to as many of the qualified buyers as you possibly can, and in the way that they like to see it. So now it's on to step 2. And this is the actual listing presentation. So arrive on time, park across the street. Again, knock enthusiastically. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Cooper. We had an appointment at 7, and it's right at 7 o'clock. May I come in? Again, remove your shoes. You've had the chance to meet Mrs. Cooper and build some rapport, but before diving into your presentation, you've got to do this. Take a few minutes to establish rapport with Mr. Cooper. It's critical, because especially if Mrs. Cooper's already sold on you to be their agent. This happened to me on several occasions, and I made the mistake of diving into the presentation before building rapport with Mr. Cooper a couple of times, and basically shot myself in the foot. Because it didn't matter what I had to say, he was never going to work with me because his wife loved me and he didn't even know me. And so you got to build rapport with the other seller. So I would say it like this. I'd say, hi, Mr. Cooper. As you know, I previewed your home earlier with Mrs. Cooper, and it would help me do a better job this evening if you wouldn't mind showing me through once again and giving me your thoughts on your home. Right before you start the retour, set your briefcase, laptop, etc. on or by the dining room table so that he knows that's where you'll be showing them everything. So I would just say, here, let me set my stuff down here, and I'll bring my notepad, and let's go through. Just take a couple of minutes, go through and kind of show me, point out the things and the benefits that you've enjoyed while you've been here. And so you build that rapport, and you again look for those common denominators or bring them up again that you saw earlier when you were through the home. Like, for example, if Mr. Cooper is a golfer, you notice that with pictures or trophies or something, and say, hey, and if you play golf too, I would say, hey, I see you're a golfer, how's your game? You build this rapport, so that they start to feel like and trust you and feel the same way that Mrs. Cooper feels like you're the guy. You got to have both on board, right? So, and now you get to the meat and potatoes, okay? So you come back to the table after the tour with Mr. Cooper, thank him for the opportunity by saying, thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Cooper, for allowing me the opportunity to help you with your real estate needs. I take this job very seriously, and I really appreciate your confidence in me. Next, hand them a copy of the filled-in listing agreement. Not completely filled in. You won't have the price in there yet, and a couple of other things strategically you leave blank, because it's part of your listing presentation to ask the questions that you need to have answered to fill in those particular blanks. So here's what I do. I have 2 copies, one for her, one for him, and then I have my copy, the master copy, let's say. And I hand them a copy, and I say, do you mind taking a moment to go over this paperwork to verify my accuracy on the details? And this could startle them a bit, and they might say something like, hey, Mike, we haven't decided to work with you yet. Well, what's this all about? And that's when I reply with, well, I'm certainly aware of that, but I like to organize my thoughts and keep everything in the proper perspective. And I do that on the paperwork, and that way I don't forget anything, especially something that might cost you time and or money. By the way, is there any personal property that you were planning on including with the sale? Help them with that. Again, you're segueing, right? And you're just moving forward. So, were you planning to leave the refrigerator, or what about the draperies, or, things like that. And just write their answers right on the listing agreement. And then, of course, the veggies. And you want to get to the fixtures as well. This, again, is, you still haven't gotten to your CMA. So you're still filling in a couple of the blanks on the listing agreement. You left blank on purpose. And, and I always went over this because it's, you don't want a bad surprise down the road. And so I would say, one thing that some folks overlook is the fixtures. Are there any fixtures that you plan to exclude from the sale? Things like, and again, help them with this and make a note of anything they want to exclude while advising them about how to best handle it in terms of selling their home. Okay, then ask, by the way, would you like us to call? That should say, would you like us, not would like us. Would you like us to call and make an appointment before showing the home, or shall we just stop by? Either answer leads you to the next minor close, which is the lockbox dialogue. Again, when they answer the appointment question, write it on the listing agreement, check the appropriate box, circle the right answer, whatever it might be. Again, go to the lockbox dialogue, and then pull out a lockbox and ask, have you ever seen one of these? A lot of times people haven't. So let me show you how it works. Do you have a spare house key, Mr. Cooper? Get the house key. Demonstrate how it works. Put the key in the box, shut the box, show them how it works, and explain to them, the safety features of the lockbox in terms of every showing is recorded as to whose card key opened the box, at what time it was opened, and so forth. And then close the drawer back up after you've shown them how it works and just leave the key. Kind of stealth, I know, but now you've got their key in your lockbox. Okay, now, next ask, and I used to love this question, are you in a position to carry back a portion of the proceeds in the form of a contract, or do you need all the cash, net cash at closing? Most of the time they're going to say we need all the net cash. Sometimes they, though, will say, we don't need all the cash. And then if that's the case, you can talk to them about carrying a second mortgage perhaps, or if they own the home free and clear, maybe they're willing to carry the mortgage on it, or the seller carried contract on it. Or even possibly, depending on their lender, you might be able to work a wraparound mortgage with them and their lender as well. So what that does is opens their home up to a larger pool of buyers who are willing to pay more for the property because of the terms. Makes sense. So a lot of times I would get that, they would say yes, they're willing to carry that, and we put it on the market, and not only would it sell quickly, but see, it would close immediately too. Especially, if it was them carrying the whole contract, we can close that thing in 10 days or less. So that's always nice. All right, so now is when you start to roll into your market research. Okay, and so you hand them each a copy of your CMA, and you say, most of my time today was spent doing market research on your home. The most important factor in determining if your home will sell is the establishment of a fair market value. So let's go over these facts of record together, shall we? Facts of record are the most important words in that whole diatribe right there. These are not just things you've pulled out of thin air. These are the facts of record. Okay, most sellers, believe it or not, will believe their home is worth more than the market says it's worth. Now is when you'll hear some questions that you must be prepared to answer. Remember, if they know more about the comps than you do, you will not get hired tonight. And also, you already know what they're thinking about value because of the questions and answers during step 1. So then say, the active properties are the homes that you are competing with right now. The pending properties are homes that have accepted an agreement on their home but have not closed. And the sold properties have closed. And the expired properties are homes that did not sell during their exposure to the marketplace. Let's go over these, shall we? And as you're going through them, you might hear things like, they may say, hey, Mike, we know this home or these homes, and our home is much nicer than these. We would never consider selling for this price. And you calmly respond with, oh, you mean the Johnson's home? Now remember, you've gone to see these homes, right? Okay, so now you can respond with, oh, you mean the Johnson's home on Mulberry Drive with the green shag carpet and mustard-colored appliances? You can see they've been on the market for 124 days so far and have come down in price 3 times since they started. They're still for sale and unfortunately have lost what I call first-time exposure. And you explain this and you say, you see, when a home first comes on the market, the first 30 to 45 days is what we call the first-time exposure time frame. And that's when it gets the most excitement and the most showings and the most activity, typically when it's on the market. Meaning there are, realtors right now working with buyers who may be perfect for your home or your home may be perfect for them, and they haven't seen your home yet. So when it comes on the market, they're going to show it, and if it's the buyer's going to ask, okay, how long has it been for sale? And the realtor's going to respond, and if they respond with a few days, a week and a half, 3 weeks, somewhere less than 30 days, that buyer, if they like the home, they're more likely to jump on it immediately and pay full price or more before someone else does and beats them out. On the other hand, if they answer with, well, it's been on the market, 45, 60, 90 days or more, then that buyer is more likely to think one of two things. One, well, it's still here now, and we like it, but let's keep looking. Maybe there's something better. It'll probably still be around if we don't find anything. Or two, Even worse, they'll think, well, this one's been on the market a long time. The sellers must be getting desperate. Let's make them a lowball offer, right? Neither one of those do you want, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. So it's very important that we don't lose that first time exposure. Don't you agree? And then I would say, and they might say something like, well, we've done so many nice things to this home and yada, 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 which is, the case sometimes. And then I would certainly say, quality improvements mainly help in getting more buyer interest, but don't always increase the value commensurate with their cost. I love to be able to add up what you've paid for your home, plus all the improvements you've made, plus all the costs in selling to come up with a value tonight. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. But let me ask you, when you made all of the improvements and updates, did you do these things with the thought of selling your home or because you're quality conscious people? Most of the time, they will say because we're quality conscious people, Mike. We like nice things. And then you reiterate some of the other facts of record and show them, and they may or may they're going to fight you. I mean, sometimes this would take an hour or two to get just through the price part. And earlier, step one, one of the questions you asked, how soon they wanted to move, and let's say in this case they said, well, within 60 to 90 days we'd like to be moved, and then I'd bring that up, see, right now, and I'd say, by the way, you did say you wanted to sell the home and move within the next 60 to 90 days, didn't you? And they'll have to say yes, because that's what they said. And then that's when I say, and I didn't put this on a slide, but I'll say it, and you can write it down. I then say, many real estate agents or brokers are mainly concerned with getting a listing, and they'll tell a seller whatever they want to hear, just so they can get that listing and just so they can get a sign in the ground. And I don't think that's fair, because you did want to move within the next 60 to 90 days, didn't you? So I can say it like that, and that way, you can let them know that you're not going to just take the listing, and they're not going to tell you how to take the listing. It's got to be a good fit for you as well as them. Again, create some authority by saying it that way and gets it moving forward. Okay, so here's a few more hurdles that you might hear. Hey, listen, Mike, we can always rent our home out. We're not going to just give it away, for God's sakes. And then I would certainly say, I totally understand, Mr. Cooper, and renting out your home as an investment property might be an option. Have you ever rented out a home before? It can be a rude awakening. A broker friend of mine was telling me a story the other day about one of his investment properties. He'd rented to what looked like very qualified tenants, but turned out to be what we call professional renters. He went on to say that after 6 months of receiving no rent, going through eviction proceedings, and thousands of dollars to refurbish the home, he finally got the property rented out again. And this is the type of thing that bothers and worries me. Doesn't it bother and worry you a bit too? Usually they'll say yes. So let's take a closer look. Perhaps I've missed something. Could you please share with me why you feel your home will sell for more than the facts of record indicate? That's when you shut up and listen, and you'll hear all kinds of things. And usually it's things like, we've got custom cabinetry, or this carpet has, a lifetime guarantee and was made with alpaca wool from Peru, or who knows. I mean, they'll come up with all kinds of reasons why they believe that their home should sell for more. And just listen to them and agree with them or disagree with me. Don't disagree, but just listen and make notes. Now, again, you're going to work on this process for a while, typically, but let's assume that you've gone through it, you've gotten them to finally come to the realization that they need to be in a particular price range, which is lower than what they thought. So, and you've helped them to realize this. So here's how you get their approvals now on the paperwork. And you say, now that we've agreed to offer your home for $400,000 and all the other details, I'd like you to invest $50 in marketing this evening. They'll say, well, what do you mean? Say, well, let's go ahead and set the price at $399,950. Sounds better and should get us a higher percentage of qualified buyers. Does it make sense? They'll say, sure. Write it on the listing. Then turn the paperwork around, your copy, to them, show it to, turn it around, put your pen near the place where they need to sign and say, and never use the word sign, by the way, but say this: Mr. and Mrs. Cooper, with your approvals right here, and point. while you say that. With your approvals right here, we can get started tonight to get you happily moved. Now you have to shut up. The first one who talks loses. When I first tried this, the silence was deafening. I mean, it seemed like it was going on forever. I was breaking into a sweat, and I wanted to say something. I got like sewing machine knees and everything. I was like, oh, I shut up, and believe it or not, Mrs. Cooper, or whatever her name was, elbowed Mr. Cooper and said, come on, let's just do this. Let's get moving on it, you know? And so, you know, and then you smile. You know, once they sign, then it's time to orient them to the process. And you smile and you say, you know, thank you so much, Mr. and Mrs. Cooper, for hiring me this evening and showing that your confidence in me. Now, I'd like to go over a few things, you know, to show you how this is going to work. And they say, great. And you say, okay. You want to help them stage their home and let them know they can hire a professional stager, or you can hire one if you'd like. Depends on the situation. But to help them stage their home and to also be ready when it's going to be shown. And you tell them, what I tell people is we want to get the buyer's senses involved, as many as possible. So let's go ahead. Let's have a little soft music playing when we know it's going to be shown and you have the ability to set it up. Prior to the showing, you know, have some soft music playing, have all the lights on, the draperies open, the blinds open, the gas fireplace on, have some potpourri or on the stove, or better yet, bake some cookies and have a nice plate of warm cookies for them. These are all little things, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, but they make all the difference in the world, because the buyer is going to maybe look at several homes that particular day. They will remember yours, if nothing else, for the cookies. It'll be like the cookie home. So it makes sense. And so you want to get everything to look its very, very best, because the way you live in a home and the way you sell a home are two different things. So you go through each room and tell them kind of how to stage it. Now, let's do one other thing, I would say. Let's go out and see where the best place would be to put the sign. Of course, you already know this, but you want them to help you. So you go outside and you kind of lead them to where you think, but let it be their decision where the best place to put the sign would be. Excuse me. Again, that keeps them involved and keeps them confident in your ability. Now, I want you to hand them a few business cards and explain that on rare occasions, a buyer may be driving through the neighborhood looking for their next home, so they may see our sign and simply stop by and ask if they can see the inside. I wouldn't recommend it, but explain to them that you'd be happy to have them take a peek, but that they must have a real estate agent with them. So hand them my card. Tell them that you will call me right now to see if I'm available to show them. You know, again, it lets them know that you're in charge and that you're available to show their home if someone happens to stop by. And I explain this, you know, a similar situation if an agent just stops by unannounced with a buyer as well. You know, let them know that, hey, if it's convenient, sure. Tell them to give you a couple of minutes to turn the lights on and get everything ready, and let them see it. If it's not convenient, you know, arrange for them to come back, you know, as soon as possible, like 15 minutes to a half an hour, if possible, because they're out looking, and who knows, they might be in from out of town. It might be their only day to look. They may be making a decision that day, and if they can't get in your home, they can't buy it. Makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, so now, the most critical thing you've got to set them up for is a fast offer. Listen, you've done your work. You've got the home priced right. You've you know, coached them on how to present the home as far as it you know, setting it up to show. And here's what you've got to say, because then now you know in your mind that's likely an offer might come in fairly quickly. And who knows, maybe even more than one offer. So you have to set them up for that, because if you don't, they will not be happy with you. So they'll be like, hey, Mike, we're paying you 7% for what? If it sells within 24 hours, right? Like the post is still hot from pounding it into the ground or whatever. Anyway, Mr. and Mrs. Cooper, many real estate agents are working with 3 to 5 qualified buyers at any given moment. Your home may be perfect for one of them, and once they see it for sale in the next day or two, they may bring us an acceptable proposal right away, and that'd be great, wouldn't it? They'll say yes. Now they're set up for it. All right, you guys. I went through this a little fast. There's certainly more, in depth when we teach this in our groups and so forth. I dive a little bit deeper certainly than this, but hopefully you got something from it. Hopefully you like what I've got and you see how it could help you. And so, if so, I'd love you to do this next, and that is. Click on my email, or if it's not a hot link for some reason, just send me an email and just say you'd like to apply for a complimentary strategy session, and if accepted, and this is just first come first serve. When I say if accepted, I only have about 25 slots available for the month, and normally these strategy sessions will take about an hour or so. It's pure content. What I do is a solid diagnosis of your business, and we see if and how could help you with your business. I'll not try to sell you a damn thing. I mean, I don't need to try to sell you anything. But if you like it, and I think you'll love it, what might happen is that we'll discover that we're a good fit and decide to work together. And either way, it's totally fine with me. So again, thank you so much for showing up and taking your valuable time to listen to this. Hope you got something out of it and can use it. And you can increase your conversion rates and bottom line for the next year and for many years to come by implementing, that's not even a word, simply implementing this strategy. So thank you again. Here's my email, and I look forward to speaking to those of you that would like to have that diagnosis and solid strategy session with me. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day, all of you, and really do appreciate it. And so that's it. Later.